What is up, YouTube? My name is Eben, and today, as you may notice, we are not talking about Pokemon TCG. We are actually talking about the Pokemon VG, that is Video Game Championships. At the regional event coming up in Houston, as you probably know, there are a lot of TCG events and TCG games. But there's also a Video Game Championship going on at the same time, and there are side events for both, which is awesome. The first day, well, not technically the first day, but the first day for main events is Saturday, and that's a TCG day. And the main day for VG is the second day, that's Sunday. Now, the trading card game does technically have events on that Sunday, but it's only if you make top cut. Now, I want to prepare a VG team because I'm kind of trying to get into VG, despite the fact that VGC has kind of an unusual and somewhat imbalanced environment. It's not quite as stable and sort of player-friendly, I think, as what you have on Smogon, for example. But it's still relatively interesting. I also don't really like doubles for a variety of reasons. How narrow the metagame is, especially right now. A lot of people have been talking about that, and so on. But, that said, it does have a lot of redeeming qualities as well. It's fun, and it's another way to play a game that I really love and enjoy. And I like bringing interesting teams, seeing how I can do. I did okay in Kansas City on VG, but I want to do a little better. Now that said, I'm not planning to do this instead of TCG. Let's make that clear. This is sort of a side thing. And if I make top cut for Sunday, that's definitely my priority. But I still want to get a VGC team ready because even if I do make top cut on Sunday, there's still side events for VG, and I want to be part of that. And I've had an interesting idea for a team. And I'm not done building the team. Work and whatnot makes life pretty busy. And I haven't really dedicated the time to it, and I haven't run all the calcs and everything I want to. But I've kind of played around with this team, and I've used it some in singles on Pokemon Showdown to some pretty fun effect. And it centers around Garchomp. This is an adamant Garchomp because it's meant to be a Mega Garchomp with some speed control on the team, which is much easier on and in double battles because you can bring in its Sand Setter with it, and you don't waste nearly as many turns. Now, usually when you see Garchomp on Sand teams, it's paired with Tyranitar, and I definitely want to keep doing that. But usually it's a Mega T-Tar and a Garchomp with some other set. However, the Garchomp hits considerably harder, and it's just an amazing wrecking ball. And if it can take one or two pokes out with it, it's definitely paid its upkeep in my mind. And I want to actually use Smooth Rock for Tyranitar. Now, I'm not planning to use this Tyranitar. This is a Jolly Tyranitar. And I've actually found that a bulky Tyranitar works very well. For one thing, you can use T-Wave. We can also make it specially bent if we want to, so we can have it fire off Ice Beams and things like that, which isn't an original idea exactly, but a bulky one firing Ice Beams, that's a little original. And we can do calcs to make sure it can one-shot things like Landorus, which is always nice. But I like using this with Smooth Rock because the 3 extra turns can make a huge difference, and our opponents can't stall out our weather as easily, but they'll think they can, which is pretty important. So we're going to be looking at a much bulkier, much more defensive Tyranitar with this Adamant Garchomp. And Garchomp can easily be meant to come in later, and you've got that Sand Force, of course. We're going to switch out some of these moves on these Mons, too. These are not in their final forms by any means. For instance, because of the way Outrage works in doubles, even though it's actually amazingly good at picking up KOs most people don't expect in singles with everything set up with Mega Garchomp, we're pretty much going to have to go Dragon Claw here. And we still have to kind of rely on Poison Jab, actually. Just because while Garchomp does have access to some steel moves, it doesn't have very accurate ones. And the 2 main fairies, well, more or less, I mean, there is Togekiss. But the 2 main fairies you tend to see are Sylveon and Azumarill. And Azumarill doesn't really care about steel moves because, of course, the water resists, so you really need that Poison Jab to pick up that extra damage and whatnot. And the Rock Tomb is almost surely going to turn into a Rock Slide, obviously, and it does get the Sand Force bonus with Mega Garchomp. And, of course, it has the spread as well. And can potentially pick up flinches if we've been paralyzing things or slowing them down with stuff like, well, Icy Wind, but also potentially Tailwind like we got here on Suicune. I feel like Suicune is a really good pairing here, as it covers a lot of weaknesses the team has, including, well, let's go ahead and talk about Scizor first, because Scizor covers Garchomp and Tyranitar just brilliantly, and they cover its only weakness very well in addition. But it can suck up like potential ice attacks, and it can take fighting attacks okay. And, you know, it can block grass, and it doesn't really care too much about water, although Scald is kind of an issue, hence why we've got Suicune paired in here as well. And, I mean, just honestly, he doesn't take any damage from the sand, and he can really snipe some problem Pokemon like Sylveon with his Bullet Punch or frighten them out, and that makes him a good teammate in my mind. I just, when I put those two Pokemon together, I automatically think Scizor, and Scizor is just automatically kind of a great Pokemon anyway, just because of his one weakness and his well-rounded stats. And Scizor, honestly, I'm kind of thinking we could be talking about Choice Band, because it's just a great item for him. Not really 100% sure, like I say, I'm still putting this team together, and if you guys have any thoughts or suggestions on this, let me know. I may not go with this team, but I'm kind of doing this partially for your benefit and partially for my benefit, so I can kind of think out loud and track my thoughts, and that's good for me. It's just a good thing when you're trying to team build and stuff like that, is to kind of, you know, track your progress, help yourself keep up, and try to get other people's ideas too. But Suicune is actually a special attacker, which our team so far kind of lacked. I had it down to kind of, maybe I was thinking Zapdos or Thundurus in this slot as well, because they can serve similar purposes, and they can get around Earthquake from Garchomp much more nicely. Those were the 4 mons I felt pretty secure about. And then we got some other mons who were potential teammates. Once again, not with these sets necessarily, but the mon itself. Garchomp covers fighting and fairy and fire. What was it? Grass and fighting were the 2 weaknesses I thought of him to cover. He covers them very well, and he can set up Icy Wind or Will-O-Wisp. He can do some pretty interesting things and come in on certain attacks very well. And of course, he can also play well with Earthquake. Same goes for Cresselia, who's an amazing support mon and could do some really cool things, I think, with Mega Garchomp supporting it, as well as some of the other mons that we could go offensive with. And Thundurus is still an amazing partner that, with his Prankster, can set up and get you a lot of control. And of course, he likes to spread T-Waves as well, which means we could put Tyranitar to some other use. And there are some other mons that could fit as well. But that's just to give you some idea of what I'm thinking about. I think a Mega Garchomp team would be amazing and pretty awesome. It's just a matter of figuring out what goes with it. So like I say, if you have any ideas, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. I'm always welcoming that, because I'm not a huge VGC player, so this is kind of cutting into new territory for me in a lot of ways. I know a fair amount about singles, and I'm a pretty good singles player, but when it comes to doubles, I'm kind of lost, and I don't want to just automatically net deck somebody else's team. I'd rather play a fun team and see what I can do. So anyway, until next time, like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Twitter if you haven't already. I post interesting things every now and then, and I won't flood you with a million updates because I'm not really tweeting that too very often. And it's a cool way you can get in contact with me if you ever want to tell me anything or suggest anything to me or say whatever you want to say. It's a great way to get a hold of me. So anyway, until next time, I will see you then.